Okay, so let's take a look quickly at how to read patterns. This one I'm going to use is coming out of the recent issue of Handwoven, but again, you're going to look at different books, you're going to look at different magazines, different places on perhaps the internet, for example, that you can buy various patterns. So let's go over and let's just do, just pick a pattern here. I picked this one here because it shows multiple things that would be helpful for you. So when we actually take a look here, all right, it's going to tell you generally what kind of structure you're looking at. So for example, this one's going to have plain weave. I've done plain weave. It's going to also have huck lace. That I've never done before, okay? The equipment that I need is to have some sort of loom that has 3 shafts. So for example, if you have a 16 shaft loom, obviously you have enough. If you have only a 2 shaft loom, clearly you do not. I have a 4 shaft loom, I have enough. You have a 6 inch of weaving width. Okay, so my loom happens to have a width of 45 inches. I've got more than sufficient amount of room for that. It needs a 12 dent reed. I do have a 12 dent reed, but again, not everybody has every reed out there. So it is quite possible that, let's say you have a 10 dent reed, for example, or some other reed, and you need to use that to accommodate, and so there are, different books, for example, I believe Learn to Weave, which is a very popular book that a lot of weavers start off with, will have it. The internet will have it as well. And they'll say, okay, if you need a 12 dent reed, but you only have a 10 dent reed, this is the order that you're going to put things through in the heddles in order to make the structure as if it was in a 12 dent reed. Here you're going to need 1 shuttle, so it could be a boat shuttle, it could be a stick shuttle. You're going to need, actually no, it would be a boat shuttle because it says you're going to need 2 bobbins, okay? The yarns, it's going to tell you what kind of yarns you're going to need for your warp and your weft. Remember, your warp is what's going on the actual loom. We'll say it's going like this way, for example, across your loom. The weft, obviously, is what you're using in the boat shuttle going across. So it's going to tell you basically the type of yarn you need. In this case, it's 8/4 cotton. It's suggesting Maurice Broussard because this is exactly what they used in this particular picture. So you may not have, like I shop at Maurice Broussard, but perhaps you don't have access to Maurice Broussard and you have different company. Again, should be similar, but it will not necessarily be exact because it's not exactly what they've used, okay? Same thing for the weft, and for each color that they've got, they're going to tell you how many yards you need. So for the jaune au, which is your yellow gold, is your 68 yards. Creme, which is your cream, is 66. Navy is 24, and so on. The warp length, basically, is that it's telling you you're going to need 79 threads. Each of those threads are going to be basically 2 yards long, okay? In that 2 yards, it's also accommodating for 5 inches of take-up. So when the threads are under tension on the loom, basically, when you cut it off, it's going to kind of spring back a little bit. So that shrinkage basically is accounted for in this take-up, okay? There's also 25 inches for loom waist. Now, loom waist basically is that there are certain parts of every thread that you're not going to be able to weave, unfortunately, right? So the area on your loom where the harnesses are, for example, you're not going to obviously weave in that section. The areas, there'll be a bit before the harness, I'm not sure what that area is called, where the harnesses are, the carriage, I guess, before and after that you're just not going to be able to weave possibly as well. Also, the tie-ons at the front and the back of the loom, you're also not going to be able to use unless you have a fringe. Now, in this particular one, it does say you have a fringe, and it's saying that the loom waist is including the amount that you're going to need for your fringe for the first and last cocktail carpet. That tells me that obviously I've got more than, 2 carpets in there in the actual pattern. Let's go to the set. Okay, so the set basically says that the warp is going to be 13.4 EPI, which to me is an odd number. I usually only see, solid numbers, not decimals, okay? It's telling me that I'm going to put 1 thread, so 1 end, okay, of each thread through every dent, but with every 8th thread, I'm going to double it if I'm using a 12 dent reed. Okay, so again, if you're not using a 12 dent reed, you would have to accommodate accordingly. When I write my instructions, I always take a pattern and I write it in a way that I'm going to understand and not make mistakes, right? And so I know that as I write out all the threads that I'm putting through, I'm going to highlight every 8th thread to make sure I know what I'm doing and I don't skip that by mistake. The weft, and EPI stands for ends per inch, right? So that's the ends when you're actually threading everything through. Every inch will have a total of 13.4 ends, which I don't understand how to calculate the 4, but anyways. The weft is 13 ppi, okay? So that's picks per inch. So once you've actually woven, okay, so you see the picture right here, okay? If I were to take some sort of frame that has like a 1 inch square, and I were to put it on top of my weaving, I would have 13 picks across for every inch if I counted it, if I've done it at the correct tension and everything like they've asked me to do here, okay? And it is possible, just like knitting, for example, they'll say, you know, the tension should be this, and sometimes your tension is tighter or looser. It may not match that. So obviously, if it's not matching this, the end result will be slightly different as well. Dimensions, okay? So in your reed, when you're putting the threads through your reed, it's going to take up, across the reed, it's going to take up 5 11/12 of inches across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my dent, I'm going to find the center, right? And I mark my center to make it life easier. And then I'm going to basically divide this by 2, measure half on this side, half on that side, so that I've got it kind of centered in my reed. The woven length, once it's done and under tension, so it's still on the loom, right? It hasn't had that spring back, okay, that shrinkage. It's going to be 42 inches. Each carpet basically is going to be 5 inches and a quarter, okay? But that's also doesn't include, right, your fringe on either side. The finish size, after you've done your wet finishing and your hemming, okay, you're going to end up with 6 cocktail carpets. It tells you each of the cocktail carpets will be 5 by 6 inches. That's including the fringe. Now, when you actually look at any pattern, it's going to have instructions. So in this case here, if we go on to the next page, you can see that obviously you've got the different steps here that you would need to read to get further information in order to be able to do that. So let's take a look here at the Heddle count, okay? Not every pattern necessarily gives this, but it is very useful to have because it tells me in total I need to have 79 Heddles. So do I own 79 Heddles? In my case, yes, I do. On shaft number 1, you're going to want to have 43 Heddles. You're going to want 30 on shaft number 2 and 6 on shaft number 3. Now, again, you may have way more than that on your harnesses to begin with. You can choose to remove them or obviously not use them. Just make sure that when you do that, your Heddles are balanced on either side so that if you have a huge amount of Heddles on one side, it's going to make your harnesses lopsided, and that'll be problematic, right? So you can remove them and just have the correct amount, but depending on the loom that you have, that can be quite a pain to do that. So just make sure you've got, the leftover Heddles are kind of balanced on each side. In this case here, you've got different colors, right? So sometimes they'll actually show the different colors. Here, you're going to have your jaune all, your cream, and your navy. And it's telling you basically that in total, the warp order color, you're going to have 34 yellow, right? And then you've got some repeats here as well, okay? Then you're going to have 1 cream. And then you've got your cream again. You got 18 cream here. You've got your navy here. So in total, you're going to have basically 12 threads that are navy. You're going to have 33 threads that are cream, 34 that are yellow gold, for a total of your 79 threads, okay? So now let's take a look at the draft, all right? And in terms of the draft here, you've got, as we said, okay, you've got your area here is very important. So you've got harness 1, harness 2, harness 3, okay? On harness 1, and again, as I'm putting the threads through the Heddles, it's telling me what colors I'm using, the yellow, the navy, the cream, okay? And so basically, I'm going to start off with the first Heddle will be a yellow thread on harness number 2. The next thread will be on harness number 1. And I'm going to repeat this 3 times. So in my instructions, I would physically actually write that out because, again, I may forget. I may only repeat it twice or once and just keep going. And I've done that before. So I rather, as I said, write everything out for myself and I just kind of check it off as I go along. Once I've done that 3 times, I'm going to be doing the yellow thread on harness 2 and then harness 1, harness 1. Now this one has a weird kind of symbol that I haven't seen before, but they explain it right here. It says, slay ends through the same dent, but thread them in separate Heddles. So I'm still, threading them in Heddles as if I normally did, but I've got to remember that when I do it through the dent, that it is something different. So again, in my instructions, I'm going to highlight that each time because, I may forget. All right. Once I get to here, I need to repeat all of this a total of 3 times. Okay. And then you just keep, you keep going as you go down. Now, if we take a look here, going downwards with the treadles here, okay, you've got basically, remember, we have treadle number 1, treadle number 2, treadle number 3. Okay, so again, on my 4-shaft loom, I've got 6 treadles. I'm only using 3 of them. So I'm going to be starting off with the cream, as you can see, and then it's going to turn into yellow later on. So with the cream, and this again is the weft, right? Your boat shuttle going through. So I'm going to basically, on the first row, I'm going to depress the first treadle, okay, using cream. Then I'm going to depress the third treadle, treadle 1, treadle 3. Then I'm going to do this section here of these orders, okay? And you'll notice that this one here, again, there may be further instructions here, but it's showing 1, 1, okay? So you're going to do treadle 1, you're going to do treadle 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and 3. This will be repeated 5 times. Then you're going to do the last little chunk of the cream with 2 on treadle 1. And then you're going to continue on with the yellow as you go down, okay? So the reading of instructions can be very intimidating when you're starting to see different colors and different repeats and so on and so forth. Again, start with something simplistic and slowly work your way up. And if it makes it easier for you, as it did for me to save my sanity, to write out your own instructions in a way that you're going to understand that makes it more simplistic for you, then absolutely do it, right? Like that's what I call it. I call it stupid proof. Stupid proof stuff for yourself, or put it in stupid format, all right? That it's easy for you to not make a mistake. And again, when I look at this, it's easy for me to make mistakes because I've lost track of how many times I've done something and so forth. Or if somebody's talking to me, all of a sudden I'm not paying attention and I'm making mistakes. So I hope that helps, and thank you for listening. Have a great day.